Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Time now for us to get into our big stories. You probably know him as Nana KKD, fashionista, broadcaster, one who speaks his mind freely. Anyway, it's another morning, and we're having breakfast with Kwesi Che Dakwa. He joins us on the show. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy to see you.
It's a real pleasure to see you again.
A little birdie told me you've been busy building your capacity.
Yeah, I've been very busy, but you know...
But it's not in broadcast media, it's in the law.
Yes, among other things.
Please don't leave broadcast media.
I won't.
Whatever you do, we still need you on air.
Glowing, you're leaving me feeling goosebumpy.
No, because I was watching the vetting of the
CJ nominee.
Of the Supreme Court nominee. And I was so heartbroken because for a few seconds, I was, in a crazy loop. I had somebody, keep saying predator. I was like, oh, no, the word is
predator.
Predator.
Right.
So
right.
why are you saying predator? And you see, the reason I was worried is, in broadcasting, we're reminded every day that we educate, we inform, and we entertain. Now, the House of Parliament is a very important house in our nation. And it's important that the people who go there, whether they are speaking Chi or Ebe or Hausa or, whatever language, make a conscious effort to get it right. We can't make these mistakes because what happens is our young will pick it from us because they think we know when actually we don't.
I guess it's the usual problem with people assuming that, oh, my professor at the university, if he says it, then it must be right. I mean, talking about the systemic problems, we still say okra instead of okra, and we still add very to superlatives. It's quite a funny system
it's
we have.
It's the lowest common denominator. And the lowest common denominator has a place in society. Every one of them is skilled in something. I was telling a professor friend of mine on my PhD program that, what about Kechirida? I said, David, me more Kechirida. And I'm saying, so, Obo Kechirida, Obo say, be biara, obi unim, die bi a wons unim. But when it comes to language, especially in our highest house of debate in the country, it's important that whatever language we speak, we make a conscious effort to get it right.
And
that's why I remembered you.
Good to know. Speaking of the Kishre bits, it is true. If you've never performed that balancing act, you'll never understand what it's like. You take it for granted until you have to do it. But since you started off on that trajectory, speaking right, so to speak, you're a journalist.
Essentially,
you're a broadcaster.
First and foremost, I'm a journalist. That's my life. Everything I've done is essentially public communication, and it started with journalism and public relations.
When you look at the landscape in Ghana today, the state of journalism, I mean, recently we got that, is it Kodeo report about journalists and how ill-paid they are in most circles. I'm not saying in every circle, but if you pick the top maybe 1%, 2%, 3% who are making something good, how about the 97% who basically have to scrape or eke out a living? That's one end of it. Then it's also about journalistic practice. How do you feel we're faring? We're not doing so well on the Freedom of Speech Index, but in terms of the practice itself, what are we doing?
Sadly, it's a conversation we had at the International Center for Journalists way back in 1992. I suggested that we have some basic examinations, entry level, intermediate level, and before people become sub-editors, some basic examinations. So people know that this is what you do, this is what you don't. And one of my colleagues at the time, I don't remember where he was from, but he said, look, King, you have to be very careful because the minute we start bringing these examinations in, we're going to be squashing freedom of speech. And I said, how is that? He says, because even the unqualified must have a voice. And I said, but if they want to be journalists, there must be some basic code of ethics and some basic practices that they must learn before they go on air. And we talked about it, but from 92 to date, I think I will re-suggest that those who want to practice, especially in broadcast media and in print media, Maybe later we'll talk about the bloggers. But for now, broadcast media and print media, there must be some basic training and basic examinations. And if you fail, just like with the law, or like with medicine, or like with architecture and engineering and nursing, you cannot practice.
Or chartered accountancy. I mean, all of these have bodies that regulate.
Why should it be that those who fail in everything must join those who are, exceptional in their field of endeavor and also assume the position of being able to address the nation? That's sad. They must be tested. And we need to take a lot of people off air. It's very important.
We need to take a lot of people off air.
You want some flowers to grow? Then you must continue uprooting the weeds. Because the way it's going, very soon, the weeds will be more than the flowers. And then our children will grow to think, oh, this is what our parents consciously cultivated. So the weeds become the new flowers.
Well, interesting perspective on which to start off the conversation. But let's get into some pertinent issues. Starting with, it's been how many months now since we last spoke? It's been a bit of time.
In September last year.
Great.
But the last time I spoke on the national broadcaster is 17th August 2022.
I do recall, and I know the situation there. But looking at everything that is happening in our country, from the last time we spoke to now, I remember the last time we spoke about the National Cathedral, we spoke about Kenneth Friata and the economy, we spoke about, we'll be getting into these issues. Between then and now,
yep.
Have we got any better? Have we got any worse as a country? What is your reading of the picture?
What a synthetic world we are living in. Things have gotten worse. And anybody who cannot see that needs to have their eyes checked. Things have gotten worse. Things have gotten worse because there doesn't seem to be a clear plan where this nation is going. For every plan, there must be a purpose. And then for every purpose, there must be some targets that we are working at reaching. And then we must say, are we looking at our needs before our wants? As you and I speak today, it's just been found that apparently some miners have been using cyanide, so they can get their gold quicker. What will cyanide do? It will poison the water. It will kill people. And we have a president who has appointed people to work with him to safeguard, first and foremost, the wellness of the nation. Because if we are not well as a people, we cannot even start discussing prosperity. Cyanide to mine gold illegally in Ghana. And we are living with it. We have broken down homes that were built for judges, made those judges leave that space, and we are spending huge sums of money to accommodate those judges. And we have built a dam on a site where we claimed we were going to build a cathedral in a nation that is in dire need of hospitals.
You say we built a dam because there's a hollow there that has not been filled. Now, some people say it's the most expensive hollow anywhere in the world.
I like to think that there was a purpose for everything that was being done. So maybe the thinking was, if we don't even get to cathedral level, at least it will be a dam for a while. Who knows? We might be able to generate electricity for the ridge area. You never know. And then you look at the mat set deal, which people want to forget. A mat set was 7 cedis. But Ghanaians sat down and watched our brothers and sisters in government supply mat sets to our children for something in the neighborhood of 80 cedis or more, with some accoutrements which the children and the teachers did not ask for. And now there is yet another promise that we're going to replace your textbooks with laptops. So who is also going to cream the top of that? Let's stop this thing. We are a rich nation led by a poor thinking leadership that is enriching themselves by making the people of Ghana poor. Because like I said, and I was hoping it will go to court so I can bring all the documents to show, the motivation for most of our borrowing was the enriching of the few people who were influencing the borrowing to make the nation poor whilst they got richer. Now look where we are. Look where we are. Look what monies we spent on the dam at Rage, and we've gotten 600 million. 600 million, isn't that money that Jospon Group can give you?
In fact, you
Isn't
consider,
that money
consider
that-
the cost of what you call the dam, and it's in the region of $400 million plus. That's almost the same as the first tranche we've got.
Accra Friendship Club, of which I'm a member, or East Legon Executive Club, of which, many of my friends are members, must be able to raise that money for you if they believe that you will use the money prudently.
Are you saying KKD doesn't believe that the NPP, this administration, is going to use IMF money conscientiously for Ghana? That's what Mr. President said. Did you listen to him when he spoke yesterday? The 29th update on COVID-19.
Well, I watched him with sadness because I've told you, I have lost faith in this administration. I am just praying that this administration will be able to stay alive and live peacefully. And hopefully we can stop ex gratia for these people who have ingratiated themselves with the people of Ghana and made things worse for the people of Ghana. In a nation where young girls cannot buy sanitary towels because there are 14 different taxes on sanitary towels, we have a Council of State whose advice the president does not need to take, but is still paid, and they also receive ex gratia. And these people are still in leadership, and we are thinking, is this the best we can get? Like they said in the Wakanda movie, is this your king?
You say we're a rich nation led by a poor thinking
leadership.
Yep. And then you talk about people cutting deals.
Should I give you another reason why we're poor thinking leadership?
You could, but just let me pose the question. So that we are a people who have leaders who like to cut corners to fill their pockets rather than to line their pockets rather than provide for the people. What then do you make of that GNPC tussle? The one involving Freddie Blay, the energy minister, cease and desist.
Freddie Blay has become Pontius Pilate. He says, I wash my hands.
Right. He says he's now going to cease and desist.
But what does that mean? No, what does that mean? Look, even the class prefect, when there's too much noise in the class, right? And the school board or the governors of the school come by to say, what's happening in this class? The class prefect cannot say, I wash my hands. Now, if a 10-year-old will not say, I wash my hands when his class is making noise, how does somebody at that level of government say, I cease and desist? What does that mean? Look, my mother said something that I wrote down. I go and sit with her. She's going to be 83 in September. 84 in September. And I converse with her. And then she says the most profound things. And I had to write this down. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to write a whole book on this. I say, Kwesi Cheye. Akoma pa eni akukuduro. No kware ka ene fa wo homa edemufua akomapa ene akukuduro nokware ka ene fa wo homa edemu befua saa niama wei onifrafuo mpo ohu ni anaso esie mpo ote enti nokura ne Ghana yempanyimfo no wo ma yeyi wo me ya because wo munye yempanyimfo because yempanyimfo ye papa mo ye nananom ene ya hemfo ne maame mo. These people are our elected public servants. We have given them all the perks so they will live well with their families, so they will do right by the people, so they can speed through traffic, so they will be safe and nobody can attack them, so they will have a policeman looking after them so nobody can attack them. Pay them well so they can also pay their domestics well. And how do they serve us? How do they serve us? When people's fathers go to hospital and they say there's no bed and they die, and you say, okay, I'm aware of that, but I'm building a cathedral because I made a promise to my God. So what next? Somebody comes and says, well, I worship stones, so I'm going to go to the Afajato mountain and commission that whole area and make it the stone grove and also develop it into something with whatever money. No, we don't bring you into power to come and do what you want to. Like Thomas Sowell said, people will tell you that this is the public interest, when in actual fact, they are only doing their selfish desires.
Is that what you saw in the Freddie Blay case?
The country is...
Is that what you saw in the Freddie Blay instance?
But of course. But of course. You see, and...
He says his hands are clean.
All these things must go to court. Now, citizens are going to have to take cases to court. Look, there's one I want to go to court. I want us to enact something on nepotism. You know, when JFK made his brother, a 35-year-old who had never tried a case in court, the Attorney General, right? After he had died and gone, even though people said he was a good president, and he also made, his brother-in-law head of the Peace Corps, the people said no. So after he had died, and another person was in power, they put forth a document that was enacted into law. The act on nepotism. So once you're president, you can't employ any relative.
Should we get to that point in this country?
We have to, because
this administration
has shown us that nepotism is real.
But
it's ugly.
Isn't it shocking? Because
it's
there
ugly.
were complaints about the previous administration, and probably the only person that could be pointed to was Bawa Mokhtari. No. And now, as many would say, there's quite a list.
The nepotism is ugly. Look, there are some people who do not have finances to come and give you money for your campaign, but they queue to vote, right? And they have studied, they have mastered their area of work. You say, it's got to be my family before everybody else. So we have to think of a law on nepotism. This is something I expect the Ghana Bar Association to be talking about, because I think their silence in this administration is deafening. It's deafening. Is it because the president is a lawyer? So it's a courtesy to one of us? It's worrisome. I'm asking the question. It's worrisome.
And others have posed the same question. But on the bit about, yes, we're talking about these shady deals that supposedly, and no one is saying that that deal was shady, but I guess as the cookie crumbles, we'll find out when we read the documentation and we look at some of the issues that we've seen in the offshore situation. But ex gratia.
I have talked about it with clarity.
I want you to delve into it one more time. And it is this. Should we scrap it? Or should we proceed with it? Consider Kwame Pienim, for example, economist. He was speaking over the weekend and said, look, if you're a president and you come, and we have a vicious cycle where almost every 6 years we go to the IMF anyway. If you're a president, you come, you lead us into an IMF situation, you don't get the benefits.
No, you shouldn't
when you are no longer president. And if you're in some other capacity, minister or whatever, and you don't deliver, no ex gratia for you. I mean, there have to be some benchmarks. But on the back of that, there's been a tussle. The Daily Guide captures it this morning. Mahama Nana Akufo-Addo tussle over ex gratia. Former President Mahama.
What is the president saying? What is Nana Akufo-Addo saying? I'll take a stance.
So the former president has said, if he gets the reins of power one more time, he'll scrap this bit. Ex gratia.
See, the thing is,
then
he can't, because
Nana Akufo-Addo says
you have to go to Parliament.
And those are the processes.
Exactly.
As for the processes to be followed,
yep,
they are in there.
Fantastic.
But the point is, Nana Akufo-Addo says, but you're benefiting from it. You're a current beneficiary of the system. Then the former president comes to clarify in a tweet. He says, my friend Nana Akufo-Addo, really sad what politics can do to a fine mind. I don't take ex gratia. I receive a monthly pension.
So you're telling me that a former member of parliament, Nana Akufo-Addo, did not know the difference between the monthly pension and ex gratia?
That's the bone of contention now.
Okay. Now, I think ex gratia should be scrapped, and I'll tell you why. We have the Social Security and National Insurance Trust. If you pay into that, depending on your profession and depending on your position, you may go home with your full salary during your pension. For some people, they get less. So these people who are already in the highest positions, who would go home with perhaps their full salary when they went on pension, are the ones who are still looking for more. Let's serve the needy, not the greedy. Ghana, listen. Serve the needy, not the greedy. You've been given so much. You have so much influence. Now you're going home and we collect these amounts of money and we say, take it. And if you don't go home and you come back to Parliament again, you sit there and you take it again. I mean, look, we have to question our elders.